Hello everybody and welcome back to RPG Horror Stories. Don't worry if my voice is a little bit hoarse. I used it quite a bit while I was reading through the Path of Exile patch notes earlier. I also want to say, hey, listen, if you're here and you're new, make sure to like, subscribe, comment on the video. Leave me whatever your favorite RPG horror story is, and there's a chance that I might read it later. And when we reach 100 subscribers on the YouTube channel, I'm going to be posting the Old Man Henderson tale in all of its glory. Now, on with the story. Guest DM leaves a bad taste in our mouths in the quest for hard encounters. This was a few years back, and I might not remember the order of events entirely correctly. At the time, I was part of a game held in a bookstore where the usual DM tried to keep things pretty light in tone and combat, fairly even balance, and all that stuff. You could have up to 3 characters you can rotate through, and the XP went to sort of a bank for the players, so it wasn't that uncommon for there to be a variety in levels in the adventuring party at any time. I don't know if someone would call it unfair or not, but if you had a low-level character and there was someone who was a higher level, the DM made sure to have the attacks go on the higher one more frequently than targeting the squishy. It was a good system, I felt. The DM also allowed Unearthed Arcana and Homebrew, within reason, of course. One of the regular players of the group was infamous for his character concept, choosing races that there wasn't an official sort of guide for. Bolos had just come out, so there were a few new player race options out there, but generally speaking, if you wanted something that wasn't from the PHB, it was either from a module that the store didn't have, or it was Homebrew. Trouble must have been brewing for some time before I joined with this player. But I think it started really boiling the week that they approached the DM with a new character. No idea what the race was, but there was some homebrew cast that allowed them to summon the monsters at a higher CR than what Conjure Woodland Beings was capable at level 1 of. Understandably, the DM said no to this, and next week the DM let us know that the one player was going to guest DM a few sessions. And the guest DM told us what level range to make our characters for it. I think it was 10 to 15. Can't remember. The usual rules the group had for magic items was in place. I was still new-ish to the group and had only known the guest DM as a fellow player, so I went into this pretty unprepared for what was going to happen. Oh no. At the bottom of the ladder, we came across some prison cells that had very sick and suffering animals. My ranger never did have good people skills, always saying people's names wrong, not being much for socializing, but they had a soft spot for animals. It didn't like seeing anyone suffer. I ask if I can do a medicine check to heal a wolf pup that is in one of the cells. You get a natural 20, plus my mods. That's gotta make the pup feel better, right? No. These were animals that were cursed, and any healing done to them would only hurt them more. So my natural 20 leading to such a high check meant that this pup exploded in pain. I don't blame guest DM for not knowing it, because I didn't mention it to anyone, but just that morning one of my pets had died and the game was supposed to make me feel happy. I just bit my lip, walked away from the table, and cried somewhere else in the store for a bit, feeling like the scum of the earth while the rest of the animals were dealt with. I've been lying to myself since the session that I healed that wolf pup, and that the party got the rest patched up and freed. It hurts less that way. You are lucky, because if I was in your place, OP, the DM might be missing a few teeth, and possibly a finger. Nobody deserves to go through that, and I'm just gonna be straight with you. I think it's a dick move to have animal torture in Dungeons and Dragons. That's the sort of thing that makes a lot of grown men cry. We continue on to a room that has these enemies that start turning us to stone. Not a Medusa or a cockatrice, but something not in the monster manual. For all but I think 2 of the party members, it would take a natural 20 plus bless to get even close to passing the saving throw. Yeah, only 2 people didn't turn to stone. It moved faster than other petrifications would, so the ranged fighters, which was most of the party, had 2 rounds to kill these monsters when we were stuck with disadvantage to hit the damn things. One of the awesome armor was of the Scourge variety and had failed their saving throw. So they did the Scourge thing of exploding off their limbs that had started turning to stone and used their teleportation stone to get us back to the keep to have someone cast Regenerate on them, and teleported back to the fight over a few rounds. Surely, that would have gotten rid of the petrification, right? Nope. I think Guest DM ruled that way because the gunslinger had Ring of Free Movement and wasn't stuck to the ground as their legs started turning to stone the way everyone else's did. Oh, did I mention that petrification meant that your feet was stuck in the same round that you failed the saving throw? Gross. There were a few more of these incredibly unbalanced encounters in the next session. Well, that I think that my mind had purposefully blocked out because the wizard decided to bring in their big guns for the 3rd and final session. He had in his loot an amulet that let him summon and control a cloud dragon to fight for us. And it got used in a fight against something that can only be described as the messed up love child of a hound horror revenant and a Dracolich on steroids. Natural 20s were the only thing that hit it seemed, and even the cloud dragon was a close thing. Session 3 starts. Sort of. We're waiting half an hour for the guest DM to show up, discussing how none of us are having any fun with this one-shot. You had to be an expert min-maxer with detailed knowledge of every homebrew monster, class, and race to predict the kind of bullshit that was getting thrown at us to even stand a fucking chance. Every combat turned into the players having to be rules lawyers to get the guest DM to admit that yes, the spells worked this way. Yes, your class feature lets you do that. The Wizards player, a longtime member of the group, turned to the DM and asked if, given the fight that we had finished the last session, and guest DM being late, if the Cloud Dragon would be allowed to age up. Since the DM was the only one to come up with this amulet, and had given it to the Wizards player, and was the only DM at the table, she graciously said, yes, it had aged. Perfect. We now had our own atom bomb. When the guest DM shows up, he doesn't seem fazed at all by the looks of dread on everyone's faces. We had a couple of new players show up to the table that week, and the regular DM had given them some pre-written characters that were in the right levels. The party comes across a room, where we are told to choose one member to be our champion to fight in a coliseum. Not the party! Not a few members, one! So we chose our atom bomb. Adult Cloud Dragon. Instantly, we find ourselves sitting in the audience of this coliseum, looking at the pit where monsters are coming out and our Cloud Dragon is fighting them. Then the enemies bring out their own dragon. I think it was an ancient blue dragon, but I'm not sure. I remembered it used its lightning breath and instantly fried every party member that was in the audience. The guest DM cannot hide their glee as like 8 party members are now a smoldering pile in our seats. Because we were not part of the fight, we didn't roll initiative, and thus were not given the chance to roll a saving throw for it. The DM points out that you cannot do that. The guest DM argues that we had been in range of its breath weapon, and that if we had wanted to be safe while watching this fight, we should have moved our seats. This is a nightmare. This isn't just a horror story, this is a fucking nightmare. God, they had a bunch of new players too, and they just fucking lost their players in the first session. Who the fuck does this shit? Oh my god. Oh my god. And this is at a game shop, and this would only give the game shop a worse reputation. I hope to fucking goodness that this game shop kicked this player out after doing this bullshit, because this has probably turned off a few people from playing D&D because they were on the receiving end of that guy, except he's somehow worse. Every combat this group did was theater of the mind. No battle grids, so we had no idea how close we were to the fight. Not that it would have made a difference, because guest DM had never given us a chance to say what our characters were going to do outside the usual joke of "I cast conjure popcorn." He had never said how big the arena was, how far away we were from the arena, or anything of the ilk. The two rangers both had sharpshooter and longbows, so the tactic for us had always been to be 600 feet back and shoot. But no! We had no agency in where we were, and what our characters would do. Every player around the table starts airing their grievances about the past 2 sessions. Traps were unavoidable, every saving throw was set at unobtainable levels unless you were at the maximum allowed level and had a 20 in that ability score and rolled in that 20. Removing the limbs that were turning to stone and having regenerate grow you new ones didn't end petrification. Animal abuse, character abuse, not showing up on time, enemies being able to avoid every attack, and now deciding that we had chosen to be as close as possible to a fight with no chance to move our characters or idea of what the battlefield looked like. The guest DM relented and said that we were allowed the chance to make our saving throws. Those who succeeded had barely enough health to chug a greater healing potion as a bonus action, a house rule that guest DM had stuck to, thankfully. Stick another potion or cast a spell to cure wounds on the nearest party member who didn't make the save, and use half our movement to drag them further from the pit. The rage I felt about this made the rest of the session a blur of seething, made all the worst when it was revealed at the end that this whole dungeon, cave, and D&D equivalent of a snuff film was just a prank bro from their revenant jester player character who knew what equipment and skills we had. The octopus from the chest popped back into existence, and I decided that it would spend the rest of its life holding up its middle tentacle, now named Flippy, which was one of the 2 positive things that came from this side quest. The other was that the guest DM didn't return again as either player or as DM. Our normal DM apologized to the group the next session formally, saying that they agreed to let them run a session or 2 and that it was of their opinion that guests had been frustrated that the game had never been a meat grinder that they craved and wanted to show how D&T should be played. Too long, didn't read? The problem player gets the go-ahead to be a guest DM to show how they think D&D should be played, making the term meat grinder look like a compliment. Don't do this. I shouldn't have to say it, but I know that I do. Don't do this. Dungeons and Dragons isn't intended to be a fucking meat grinder. Jesus Christ. This player, what this player wants is to wargame. Nobody else wants to. So why did this player decide to make a one-shot where you have to wargame when nobody else wargames? This is not, oh man, I think D&D should be a meat grinder. This is, oh, you don't like wargaming, huh? I'll make you like wargaming. It's, quite frankly, an insult to everyone who plays D&D. And goddamn, the new players, the new party members, oh my god, they went through hell because this guy is a complete asswipe. Jesus Christ. Alright, much love and stay sexy. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. I'll be streaming Tiny Tina's Wonderlands on Twitch. The new DLC just came out, so I'm trying out the new Blight Caller class. That said, I'll see you guys later. And you've got big dick energy if you made it all the way to the end. Bye-bye!